It is 3:05. I'm Helen Farmer. We're talking education this hour. We're talking about the different scenarios that schools are, of course, preparing for, what good online learning looks like. And I think, I'm hoping my motto of done is better than perfect will resonate over the last few days for many a parent.
This is Eye on Education on Dubai Eye 103.8.
Sponsored by Horizon International School, a supportive, student-focused international community school offering premium quality British education for boys and girls from the ages of 3 to 18.
I'm not going to lie, this isn't the conversation we'd hoped to have this Thursday afternoon because Monday, kids back in the classroom. Monday night, that picture changed. It's been a week of very rapid change for schools across the UAE. Of course, going back to distance learning, planning return for campuses, and then supporting families through it all as well. And behind that flexibility is a huge amount of work, of coordination, of care. And joining us is Deputy Head Teacher at Repton Dubai, Emma Ives, to talk about how schools are navigating these various scenarios while also keeping students supported, teachers front of mind and parents reassured. I ask you this with genuine care, Emma. How are you?
I'm okay. Thank you so much for asking. I am surviving like the rest of us.
I'm grateful for the honesty because when people ask me, how are you? I'm like, I'm okay. I'm not thriving, to be honest, because as I said, Monday, it was a bizarre moment. And then, of course, we get that late night message and then I check my phone at 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm getting messages from teachers going, I'm planning for tomorrow. And I think it's really important to emphasise that schools find out at the same time as everybody else. You haven't got some secret fast track of communication. You're having to respond in real time in the same way that we have this. Okay. However, you've got so much more to do, Emma. Tell us a little bit about, I guess, the workload that goes in to having lessons prepped for in classroom to suddenly then going back to teaching through a screen.
Well, I think it comes with the prep time to begin with. So when online learning was initially called, we explored every possible scenario to try and work out what was the best. And we're through school as well, so that looks very different for our early years practitioners as it does to our exam cohorts. So we had to prepare to make sure that everybody was catered for in that model. And that did adapt and evolve and grow the longer we were online and the more feedback we got from both the students and the parents to make that model as strong as it could be to support them all in those scenarios. So when we moved back to face-to-face learning, we were really blessed. We had over 85% of our students back on site in face-to-face learning. So that transition itself came with a magnitude of planning in the background and making sure the safety protocols were in place, that everybody felt that they were aware of all of it. That knowledge is so powerful in these scenarios. So making sure that communication line was really clear to all aspects of our community. And ultimately, when we came back to face-to-face, we still held strong with that online model and we still provided for that percentage of our students that were still out of country or couldn't come back to Repton and be with us face-to-face. So with that in
this
mind,
week.
Exactly. So with that in mind, because we still had the dual model and we still had an online provision, it actually made that transition back into online a lot easier, a lot more fluid because we were doing it, you know. So
logistically, perhaps not as shocking as it had been a couple of months ago, but I think emotionally quite draining and frustrating for for everyone involved in that. This is no one's dream scenario, and that's what I found really frustrating actually from a lot of attitudes of going, well, we want the kids back in school or the teachers aren't doing enough. I'm like, the teachers, no one wants to be teaching through a screen right now. I certainly know for, teachers who are in school rather than, tutoring through online, you want to be back in the classroom.
Absolutely.
And any kind of anger, I think, has been quite misplaced. So I'm literally touching all the wood and crossing my fingers in studio. We are hoping that tomorrow we're going to have a feel-good, favourable announcement that come Monday morning, we're going to have that feel-good factor again because, as you said, 85%, and it's similar in our school as well, that appetite to be back in the classroom, back face-to-face, and just so happy to be there. My 9-year-old kind of crawled into bed with me this morning and I was like, did you do all your tasks yesterday? And I could feel her body just kind of slump and have a bit of a groan. And she was like, I want to go back to school. I was like, I know you do, sweetheart. I know. It's just 2 more days. And it's been really hard. It's been really hard to explain to the kids that we know that you know what to do, but it was 4 alerts on Monday night and safety has to be a priority. because I think motivation's been a problem this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you mentioned the some misplaced anger. Like, I've seen another side to that as well. Actually, I feel like our parents have seen a glimpse into what we actually do on a daily basis, and especially those that are able to support their children from home. You mentioned your daughter being 9, and it is so challenging to engage that those ages of children online.
I think every age, it all I think there's been parents who've been like, oh, I feel lucky I haven't got exam age kids, and you've got parents going, I feel lucky I haven't got FS. I don't feel like any year is particularly in a sweet spot for this. It all comes with its own challenges from a teaching point of view as well, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And I think that's why, like for me, it's actually built that relationship with parents, because they have that greater respect of what we do on a daily basis. Absolutely. But equally, we couldn't have achieved the traction or the motivation if it wasn't for their background support. And that's been so integral for us in building both the online and the face-to-face provision, is getting their support, getting their feedback, what works for your child, and then actually hearing them as well, really listening and saying, you know what, it's okay. Like, your child hasn't completed this task today, but that's okay. You've managed to get them to concentrate and sit for a little amount of time, and we'll try again tomorrow. And this is what we'll try, and maybe suggest some different alternatives as well. So it's been a real partnership approach, and that's been the biggest thing we've taken out of this, really, is that it's got to be a community effort.
I will take that silver lining all day long, and I echo that. I think there's been a huge realisation in the amount of work and care that teachers have been doing that perhaps we have taken for granted over the years, that's been pretty clarifying for an awful lot of us. And just to echo your point, Emma, about, what does good online learning look like? What's good enough? That is going to differ from age group to age group, child to child, and even day to day. There might be days where the kids are quite happy to sit and be engaged through the screen. There might be some days where their eyes are drifting off, or they can't be, just can't be bothered. And there does need to be a bit of grace there, I would say. And I just want to say to any parents who have been like me going, have you done your tasks? Right, you've got to get that completed. It's not worth your relationship with your kid deteriorating over what we hope is just a few short days.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to talk about, hopefully, the return on Monday, about focus on academic, but also on emotional well-being as well. So important. Emma Ives is in the studio with us today from Repton Dubai. She's Deputy Head Teacher. If you've got any questions, you're more than welcome to get in touch. I think we're also important to talk about the idea of the spirit of a community, of unity across the UAE, and a bit more reassurance for parents listening today. 4001 to join the conversation. It is 13 minutes past 3. We've got producer Jen Crichton in the studio.
Dubai Eye 103.8 traffic.
Sponsored by Yas Island Abu Dhabi. Isn't there a place that keeps kids thrilled? The answer is Yas. Book your Kids Go free package now at yasisland.com.
Now, as we said, not a conversation we planned for, and not a traffic report we planned for, because normally it would be school pickup time around now, Jen.
Yes.
Not the case today. How is it looking out on the UAE roads?
Interestingly, around my son's school, 2 accidents right now. So Alice Isle Street through Al Furjan, we've got 2 accidents on the northbound carriageway, so that's causing problems there. Avoid if you can. We've also got an accident on the carriageway heading away from the coast, that is, on Sukim Street, so basically just past Mall of the Emirates. That's causing problems back towards Sheikh Zayed Road. Still got that congestion from D3 to Business Bay on the Al Khail as well, but otherwise not looking too bad as we head north through the city. We do have 1 accident in the middle of Zabil at the moment that is on a residential street, but just one to be aware of. And then once we get north of the creek, we have got an accident on the northbound carriageway of the 311 through Al Qusais, but we've got tailbacks on the 311 from Sharjah's industrial area right back to city centre Mirdif. We've also got 2 accidents on the S102 through Muhazina at the moment. Bit of congestion northbound on the E11 through Sharjah city centre as well. Otherwise, really not looking too bad at all. If you see anything I've missed, though, you can let us know. 4001 on the text.
Thank you, Jen.
This is Dubai Eye 103.8.
Same number applies, 4001, if you want to add your voice to the conversation around education. You don't have to put your name on it if you'd rather not. But as we always say, please do not pick up your phone to get in touch until it is safe to do so. Be part of the solution and not the problem.
More coming up next on Dubai Eye 103.8.
Your
We We are going to be meeting a musical maestro. We're talking about support and more when it comes to navigating this week and what might lie ahead from Monday.
This is Eye on Education on Dubai Eye 103.8.
Sponsored by Horizon International School, a supportive, student-focused international community school offering premium quality British education for boys and girls from the ages of 3 to 18.
We have had looking at 4 days of distance learning, which we hadn't planned for this week. And of course, we've seen logistics being challenged. But there is this bigger question, how do you create stability and confidence and a sense of calm for students when a lot of things feel like they're shifting? Emma Ives is with us today, Deputy Head Teacher at Repton Dubai, to talk about the teacher experience, about the invisible workload and the appreciation that we are seeing more of, thank goodness, for these amazing educators, but also the role of parents right now, about being on the same team and having the same message of positivity about getting back into the classroom. I was just saying to you off air, Emma, that I left my kids after having a lot of screen time and probably staying up a little bit too late last night. We do often underestimate it, but how important is something like routine for children when everything else feels a bit up in the air?
It's absolutely integral. It's so important that children feel that constant, and that's important for everybody. That reassurance is one thing that we really want to come through this whole situation from our wider community, and that's one thing we've really prided ourselves on is making sure we have those parent sessions, the student sessions, that touch point with everybody so that people feel they're not alone. And it brings you right back to the PTSD we all have from coronavirus and being at home and feeling quite isolated, and that really resonated with me and with our leadership team when we were planning for this and making sure that nobody felt alone and isolated in this. And that was the cornerstone of our planning moving forward, making sure that we didn't feel that we were alone. And actually the outcome has been that we've realised that a school is so much more than actually the building that it's built in, and that it is that feeling of safety and that warmth and that security and that emotional regulation,
It always comes back to the people. And, if you've chosen the right school for your child and your family, you will have that trust and you'll have those same values and you will have this understanding that, as you say, everything is being done, not just for that, physical safety in terms of the work that's been done there, but also that psychological safety. And the fact that, people are excited to see each other, that was so thrilling about the last couple of weeks. And, to come back to your point about isolation, about communication, about, if your child is feeling X, Y, Z, these are the resources we have, whether that's on campus or online. And also, I think there have been some really lovely little initiatives that have popped up, across schools in the UAE. For example, our daughter's in year 6, so I have felt really sad for her that this has been her last term at her school and her friends have scattered and she hasn't had, well, we hope there's going to be a graduation, but, things have had to be postponed or put in the back burner. But what the school did is they had, some senior leadership and head of years coming to the house with, to say hi and just to check in and truly going above and beyond. What are some of the little things that you've been doing at Repton in terms of making the kids feel seen and encouraged?
I think it's humanising ourselves as well in a way, making us feel that we're all in this together and breaking that barrier, I suppose. Like sometimes children come into school and think, oh, it's my teacher and I can't speak to her.
You're the celebrities.
So yeah, it's been lovely. We actually made a really nice video, like a lip sync type video where we just kind of laughed at ourselves
what
as
was
well.
The song?
Well, do you know what? It was an original. I'll have to share it with you. Rivan Major in our music department actually put it together.
Wow.
And the year 5s and 6s were singing it, so they've been working on that too as part of their transition. And we just have that real sense of gratitude for everyone, and I think that has to be a silver lining that's come from this as well, that children actually appreciate those relationships. And I came to the studio today straight from, we have some play dates at the minute because our early years students can't really engage with the online learning as much as our older students, so we had a play date today, and just the looks on their little faces when they see one another is just brings it all back. It brings it back as to why we do this, but ultimately reminds us that the children are our reason, whether you're a parent, an educator, a wider part of the community. They're the reason why we do it, and the mums and dads, they have the children at the centre, and they want what's best for their children, and that's that middle ground, isn't it? It's what everybody wants. So as long as we keep that at the centre of our provision, supporting them in school, online, the children are, their needs come first, and that's so important.
We talk a lot kind of come September about the summer slide, this idea of there being some loss of learning and academic aptitude over the summer months. And what's been really hard for, I think, a lot of people, educators and parents alike, to think about is we had hoped, at the end of February, beginning of March, this was going to be a couple of weeks. And there was a lot of talk of, do you know what, it's only a couple of weeks, it's going to be fine. However, we're now distance learning May 7th. And I think you'd be a bit naive to think that there isn't going to be some kind of social or academic impact of the last couple of months on kids. And I know it'll depend very much on the age group and even their personality. When you welcoming kids back in on Monday, fingers crossed, how are you going to prioritise things like the academics that might have been missed, those gaps or cracks that might have shown, versus the emotional well-being side of the students? Emma, how are you going to make sense of all of that for everybody?
Well, we've already started that process, which is great. So we had a carefully planned out reintegration plan, we called it. That week one was really about the safety, security, well-being, making sure that everybody felt comfortable with the protocols, and children that maybe arrived a couple of days later than others, that they had a friend walk them through where our safe zones were, and that was that safety, that element that is so paramount. And then that second week for us was really about a gap analysis. So that was starting to do some assessments age appropriately, and just seeing because we had done our end of term 2 analysis, but in real time there could have been another gap of potentially 7 weeks even from that. So working out where they were, and because we haven't actually heard any clarification on GLs, we're still planning for those GL progress tests as well. So actually sharing that with parents was so important for us to say, look, we've noticed that there is a gap in the knowledge here. Here's some strategies you can use to help us plug that gap. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what we would like your support with moving forward. So that gap analysis, but again, that triangulation between telling the students, telling the parents, telling the teachers, so we're all working collaboratively in the best interest of the child. And then week 3 for us was then plugging those gaps. So actually starting to really tailor that provision, that individualised support to help get those students to where they needed to be. So when we went online, then that was a continuation of that. The children knew what they were working on, so we were able to keep that traction with that, really. So when we do return, it will be back to that, making sure everybody feels safe and secure, but actually in partnership now with that traction, we know where those gaps are and we know what we need to do to get over them.
And as you said, it's so much is dependent on the age group. With the little ones, it's about reconnecting with their friends. As you're getting into those assessments, it's understanding potentially what's been missed over the last couple of months. As you said, Repton Dubai is a through school. Are there any age groups that you're particularly concerned about, Emma, that, in terms of short and long-term impact?
Well, the early years one is an interesting one that you mentioned. Like I said, we have our play dates at the moment, but it's about routines for them. It's simple things like opening their lunchbox or sitting with their friends. Those basic skills that they have got so used to within the school setting that maybe they don't use at home. They sit at their dinner table, or, they sit with someone that helps them. So it's trying to encourage the parents to actually give them that independence at home as well, because the easy thing to do, and I have a daughter of that age as well, the easy thing to do is just eat your Rice Krispies and give them to you.
I'm going to feed you because it saves me time and stress.
100%. So it's just trying to educate those parents as well. Like I said, collaborative effort. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you were speaking earlier with talking about exam cohorts. So at the minute we've moved to a daily check-in with our exam cohort parents, because we're having a lot of questions come up, and like I mentioned, that information, that knowledge is power. So we don't want parents or students stressing at home not knowing the answers. So we have to be really transparent with what our plans are and how we can support them and answer those questions.
What I found really encouraging was just today looking in a Facebook group, and one parent really praising the efforts of teachers who are looking after that age group, of the assessments, of communication. And I think a lot of places have really shone, because our expectations were exams were cancelled, this isn't fair on the kids. But the efforts that have been shown to be like, we are going to absolutely do our best to make sure that your child is represented in the most fair and most positive way, so you don't need to worry. And now we're seeing this lovely kind of upswing of reassurance that there is so much concern and correction being put in place that perhaps we as parents had no idea that we could ever predict. And that's really lovely. So, again, credit to all the teachers. And it has just kind of brought together the sense of unity, I think. And you know, I'm not a big fan of the word resilience. We've been talking about it this week, that we maybe think our kids are so resilient, and it maybe doesn't do them justice, that actually this has been really hard and for some really, really challenging.
Absolutely. But I think resilience as well, it's not individual, it's collective, isn't it? You know, so it is, like we keep saying, about that community effort and that community feel, and it's so important to have that trust in each other, in the relationships. And like I said, that's the key thing that's come out of this, really. It's that understanding that education is so much more than, you know, just your exams, just the building.
Absolutely. And I think it's also brought this level of understanding. And I know I come from a background where I went to the local free comprehensive. You know, I didn't pay for my education growing up, and that's quite foreign for me to come to a part of the world where that was the model. And I think for a lot of parents, unfortunately, there's been an idea of like, we write the check and then we outsource the education, and actually understanding that in good times and in bad, you can't do that. You know, you need to have an active interest in your child, in their learning style, in their enjoyment or their challenges. And again, if there's anything that comes out of that, we hope it's a greater understanding of our children and how they learn and how we can ultimately be on the same page. So let's just keep our little fingers crossed, Emma, that Monday morning, 7:30, Repton Dubai is going to be welcoming back those lovely little and not so little faces.
Celebrating across Dubai and the UAE,
Manifest.
I hope.
Manifest. Emma, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Deputy Head Teacher at Repton Dubai. We've got a busy green room. We're going to be speaking to Emma Reeves next. We're going to be talking about the importance of creativity being a comfort, why it's so important to keep up with those hobbies and passions, and meeting a young man who's the absolute embodiment of that. We're going to be hearing from Roger, a 9-year-old student who's made a very special friend because of his incredible musical talents.
His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin